Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of RSCast here on the Fancy Crew, where we're all pretty dressed, I must say, for this special occasion. As we all know, the league play has ended. We are now entering the territory of play-ins and playoffs. And as always, it's the usual cast. Myself, Travis, joined by Pegasus and Kingsman. Guys, how are you doing?
I'm feeling excited. This is it. This is the start of playoffs. This is the start of play-ins. This is what the past 9 weeks have all been for. And, we get to announce some of the teams that have made it. Some have already had their hearts broken, but there can only be one winner in each tier. I'm so thrilled for this one.
And well, some have had their hearts broken by being told they're not allowed to play playoffs. So, however you want to look at it, some teams are going to be walking with their heads held very low. But obviously, that's not what we're here to look at tonight. We're here to look at the teams that have made top six and will be progressing, and we leave the bottom four behind.
Yeah, and you said it there perfectly. We're now going to take a look at the teams that actually made it through to the play-ins and playoffs. So let's just go straight into the weekly recap, starting obviously in prospect. A lot of results to talk about. So let's dive straight into it. Pegasus, let's talk about the Glaciers conference. What happened?
Well, let's start with that first result right there at the top of the screen. Naja end up sweeping Newborn, ending a run where they had quite a couple of draws. They were waiting for that win. They managed to get it, but then what happens next? They get swept by Terror. So what started off as such a good week quickly fell apart back to neutral. And this Terror team, they almost managed to beat Propel. So they get a 7-1 finish here in week 9. Palmas also drop double draws against Tomfoolery and Genzai, which you'll see later is going to be very significant.
All right, already curious to see how the standings are. But first, Kingsman, let's talk about the Ignis conference.
So many teams needed results this week, and those teams pushed, and some teams got. Others didn't. Obscurity amongst the names to go 7-1 alongside Alta, and even that Jabata side I talked about last week that had a hot run of form going into the play-ins. They're going to really show themselves as they pull off a brilliant week to end up, well, it'll show how vital that 6-2 week is against Tartarus, who went 4-4, and Liven's got a 5-3 week. But at the top of the table, 2 double wins and 1 win for Obscurity consisted of a 3-1 win over Mosaic at the top of the table to stop their charge towards the top 3.
So here as well, a lot of sweeps, a lot of big results happening. So let's just go straight to the standings. Let's see who made it. We're going and talked about Glacies. So Pegasus, who made it through?
Well, the final standings. I spoke about Naja getting a sweep, getting swept, Palmas with the double draw. Why was that so important? Because Palmas had a chance. They could have taken that first seed. They could have got their ticket straight to Saturday. Don't need to fight for the 2 lives. But no, Naja take that spot on head-to-head. Propel fly their way up the table all the way to 5th. Terror, despite having a very good week, still have to sit behind Palmas. And you'll notice here, Genzai in 6th and Pawns in 7th. Well, there was actually a matchup between those two teams. Genzai did beat Pawns, but Pawns will be going to play-ins due to a disqualification. Genzai just didn't get those sub-games in.
That is always rough if you can't get the sub-games and then you have to forfeit your spot. But we have the 6 teams from Glacies that are making it through. And Naja and Palmas, number 1 and number 2, doing a very good job here. And yeah, it's only a goal differential that made the difference there. So we know the first 6 teams that made it through. Let's talk about the second 6 teams that made it through. Let's talk about Ignis Kingsman, who made it.
Well, the 6 teams joining them, Obscurity at the top, 51, the best form in league play going into the playoffs. 13 wins this season, a mountain to climb for the others. But Alta They finish in 10th with a double win. It allows them to go just ahead of Mosaic in that 3rd place spot. And Taisho, they couldn't get a win this week, and that will drop them down to 3rd, 4th, even 4th place with that 1 life in the play-ins. Livens, though, they were so close in the end, but not close enough. 1 win behind Taisho and 3 behind Mosaic. Another week, and that would have been a beautiful fight. Jabata's amazing run of form at the end of the season. They snuff 6th away from Tartarus on 37. I think that might be the highest wins to not make top 6. And then obviously Basilisk and Caro and Cardinals weren't able to do it. They just didn't have the form in the last part of the season. So those 4 will be getting dropped.
So here, a little bit of a bigger difference in the top 3. But here we have the other 6 teams that made it through. And Jabata started a really close battle there. But in the end, Jabata's congrats for making it through with just 1 win difference. So with these 12 teams, now let's take a look at the bracket so far. Because obviously we do have a little play-ins bracket. And here you'll see it. Alter, Terra, Palmas, and Mosaic already in the upper bracket. Jabata's Propel, Pawns, Livens, Taisho, and Newborn in the lower bracket of play-ins. And I'm just gonna ask you guys real quick, what if you can pick one matchup here in play-ins? Which one are you most hyped for? Pegasus.
But I'll have to go for Palmas versus Mosaic, and it's just because of the story of Palmas here having to even play this day just because of a head-to-head. They'll be wanting to seek revenge, keep themselves with 2 lives, which they could have got with just 1 extra game win. That's what's beautiful about RSC. Every single match counts.
All right, and what about you, Kingsman?
Well, I had to go in the lower bracket this time. I'm heading towards Jabata's Propel. Propel, they haven't got a win in the last 2 weeks, and Jabata's have come in on a flying run of form. So, Propel on paper are a very strong team, but Jabata's run of form surely can't be denied.
Yeah, and then Kingsman, I'm gonna agree with you. I stay in the lower bracket as well, but for me, it's actually gonna be Pawns against Livens. Our 2 orgs playing against each other, our franchises here, and I think it's gonna be a good battle. And I'm just curious to see who's gonna take it. And then afterwards, you have Newborn. Newborn is also a strong team. But that is it for the play-ins. So let's move on, as we have the entire playoff bracket here with Naja and Obscurity already waiting for their opponents. And there you see the entire bracket. So the teams from the lower bracket, they have to make quite a run to make it to the end. Naja and Obscurity, they already have an additional life, and they made it through to Saturday, like Pig said earlier. So with that, Prospect is done. Let's go and continue to Challenger, as we have a lot to talk about here as well. So Pegasus, let's dive straight into the Glaciers Conference.
I'm going to start off with the first word that's in my notes. It's just a bullet point that says chaos, because that's what I saw this week. First of all, Bishop's undefeated run ends. They get their first loss and negative week. I mean, they didn't have anything to play for, but it's not looking great when you want to build that confidence for playoffs. They lose against Feather, giving them 3 points, and draw 10th place Oracles. Now, Oracles, they were my Chaos team. They were the reason that I titled it this, because they also swept Cascabel, a team that was trying to fight for that play-in spot. And despite Feather's huge results against Bishops, they then got a shock loss to Kyomi. And then Apprentices, they look like they get a result. They get a win versus Impulse. And then they drop it to Cascabel. Neptunium, however, unbeaten in the last 5 games, a win versus Impulse, and a draw versus Mischief. It was just results all round that you couldn't expect.
Yeah, and I think with all those results that you couldn't expect, the standings might have shifted a little bit. Maybe not at the top, but the number 4, 5, 6 might have shifted. But we'll get there in a little bit. First, Kingsman, do you also have a lot of random and just unexpected results in the Ignis Conference, or is it a little bit more steady?
I have no draws, is what I have.
Wow.
Clean, decisive results. 7 sweeps. 3 3-1s. Some teams have gone 0-8. Some teams have gone 8-0. This was a week for teams to prove themselves, and some have. But it's not going to do much as Serene Yamato found their second loss of the season in a sweep to Compactly, who are looking to challenge for that first place spot. And Shrine also got a loss to Eclipse, who were pushing for that top 3 spot. They were on a huge run of form, 10 wins apiece for Shrine and Eclipse, but one of them doesn't make the top 3. It's ridiculously close. And then trading wins and losses outside of the top 6. As Komodos, they managed to find a win onto Canaans at the bottom of the table. But honestly, all carnage across the board. Teams sweeping and getting swept like Eclipse, and then other teams just not having a good week.
Yeah, so in the entirety of Challenger, we have 2 draws that happened in the Glaciers Conference. Everything else is decisive results. So with that, let's take a look at the final standings of the Challenger tier here in RSC 13. And Pegasus, we're going to talk about Glaciers first, obviously. So let's talk what happened here.
Well, Bishops can go negative, they can drop points, they can get their first loss, but they've got a 10 game win difference to second place Feathers, who sniped that spot away from Apprentices here. Neptunian, Gelvier, and Mischief managed to push themselves up into those playing spot. Cascabel and Impulse with some shock results dropped themselves all the way down, and Oracles, I want to give them a special mention. They got a draw and a win this week. They caused a lot of chaos in the middle of the table, and they get themselves just that little bit closer to Impulse, so they can give themselves a pat on the back. It won't take them to play-ins, but it's just something you like to see for game week 9.
Yeah, and definitely for the teams at the bottom, it's always nice to play a little bit of damage, because then you can just, you may not make it, but you can ruin it for someone else. And I think with some of the results, they definitely made it difficult for the other teams. But there you have it, the top 6 from the Glaciers Conference. So let's go to you, Kingsman. Let's talk about the Ignis Conference. Who made it through?
Serene Yamato might have had a sweep loss this week, but they do hold first. 51 wins will see them go through as your first place team straight to Sunday. But Compactly, they sweep up second from Shrine, who end up third. And I told you how pivotal that sweep could have been. But Shrine were able to hold on to it with a 4-0 sweep over Pardus themselves. Eclipse, they couldn't do any more. They got the max points, but it's just not enough. Orcus, they end up in 5th, a minus goal difference, though not too pretty, but I'm sure they don't care. They're on 37. Same with Crusaders, who I don't know what the difference between those two are, but they do end up in the same stage. Pardus and Komodos tied on 33. Doesn't really matter. They are both dropped. Messiah and Canaans were both dropped last week, but at least every team ends with at least 1 win this season.
Yeah, and here we have the 12 teams that made it through. And at first I was like, ooh, the 6 and 7, they're really close to each other. But there's this full series win, or a full series gap. Maybe another week, like we had in Prospect, could have changed something. But that doesn't matter, because let's talk about the play-ins bracket that is coming up here. We have Compactly, Apprentice, Feather, and Shrine in the upper bracket. Crusaders, Galvian, Mischief, Orcus, Eclipse, and Neptunium in the lower. And I'm gonna ask you guys again, what matchup are you most hyped for if you can only pick one? Pegasus, I'll give it to you.
Well, I obviously play in this tier. I know a lot about all these teams, and I'm telling you now, Feather versus Shrine is going to be an incredible matchup. I know it seems like I'm favouring these upper brackets, but Feather, they've been on this interesting run of form recently, which we've been watching. We've scrimmed them a few times. I think they can impress against Shrine, a team which has been dropping a few points recently, but started off a season so well. So it'll be interesting to see who manages to keep their 2 lives for Sunday.
Yeah, it's definitely a good matchup to pick. So, Kingsman, are you also upper bracket or are you going lower bracket?
No, I'm sticking to the lower bracket, and I'm going with the bottom of the bottom. Mischief versus Orcus. Orcus have been a very strong side after their rebuild. I'm pretty sure I saw Kevin say in chat their first loss after the rebuild, and they've been an incredible side since. But I think Mischief are an amazing side, looking at some of their players. I know them very well. Wolf Slayer, Dabs, and Spongy. Spongy is one hell of a player and someone I definitely would not count out of performing a brilliant performance against Circus.
Yeah, it's also a very good matchup. And this time I'm going also lower bracket, but for not really a reason that I find it an interesting matchup. But it's Crusaders versus Gambier. I want to see Heki in action. It's just, I love the man. I want to see him play, make it through. Let's see if he can pull it off. So yeah, it's a simple reason, but it's an honest reason. Let's give it to that. But with that, we have looked at the playing bracket. Now let's take a look at the play-off bracket, because there is an entire bracket left with Bishops and Yamato who already made it through. And same as in the with Prospect. The lower bracket is still up for grabs for anyone, but Bishops Yamato, they made it already through. They have an extra life. They have an easier route to take. So now Challenger is done. Let's continue to Rival, because Rival already also a lot of interesting results happened there. And Pegasus, what happened in the Glaciers conference?
Well, week 8 was all decisive, but we started off this one with a draw. Journeyman facing Mirage, those top two sides getting the chance to face each other. It was an opportunity for teams to come back and steal that first spot. Sadly, it fizzled to just that, having to fight other teams to try and keep that position. Ash had got an upset. Ash upset Mirage and Journeyman, who sweep Tombow also for a bit of space. Uranum completely clutched their season, beating Knight and Montbelliard. They were one of two teams to get a double win, and you'll see how important that is for them later. It stopped a loss streak, and they just stepped up when it mattered most. And Mystics solo-handedly did shut out Continuum and Montbelliard.
Wow, Mystics having a very good week then, if they had that big of an impact here in week 9. So curious to see how the standings are with all these results. And I see a couple draws in Glaciers, but this time I'll see a couple draws in Ignis. So Kingsman, what happened there?
Serene Meiji, they had a third place to hold on to. They needed to hold on to it for that easier bracket run, but they got a double loss week in the final week of league play, swept by second place Nightfall, and beaten 3-1 by 8th place Tizok, who were looking to make a late top 6 charge. But it's not going to be their season completely over, but a huge dent in the mentality. And one side that will not have that going into the playoffs is Onka. 8-0, they swept third place Hydra, and they got a sweep over 7th place to Ruba. And you'll see how clinical that sweep onto Ruba. But also, before we go into this, keep in mind, Caligo got a 3-1 win onto Nightfall in second place. Nightfall were able to sweep Meiji, but Caligo were able to get a win over second place, whereas Ryuruba only got a draw against Erebos. We'll flip to the standings to see how important that result was from Caligo.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna say too much. I'm gonna let you hype up the standings as much as you want, and we're gonna get there in a little bit. But first, obviously, we're gonna talk about the Glacy standings, because that's just the way it is. So Pegasus, who made it through?
Well, Uranum, they've got themselves that red arrow next to them, but they did get a double win week. They got themselves some space against Python, and they've secured themselves at play-ins. They were kicking and screaming everywhere on the table, including Knight, who they beat, and now we see drop out of the top 3. They'll now have to battle in the lower bracket. Journeyman and Mirage, we're seeing the impact of that draw between them and their other results that they had, because Journeyman now take that number 1 spot, and Mirage are going to have to fight another day.
So, like I said, Knight's dropping down, Python close to making it, but Uranium just had a little bit of a better week there. So we have the 6 teams from the Glaciers conference who made it through. So Kingsman, we're going to you. I'm just gonna give it through to you. Let's talk about Ignis.
Well, Onka, they have the best form in league play. End of. They come out with the best form out of any team in league play, even ahead of Bishops, who everyone said were going to be the top, but it wasn't. Onka, 55 wins, most wins in league play. Congratulations, 134 goal difference, and a 2 series ahead of Nightfall in 47. Hydra's that win over Serene Meiji allows them to hold on to third place, but Meiji will have to fight in the lower bracket. Same with Erebos, and see what I mean. Caligo's 3-1 over Nightfall compared to Yoruba's 2-2 is the one game that separates both of these teams. So Caligo with a massive upset, and they get to be able to hold on to top 6, sending Yoruba, Tizok, Sanctum, and Sentinels home. And a fun fact for all of you, Shaman's only team that had a chance going into play-ins in that final week was Yoruba. So, apart from Premier, they have no teams that have made it into the play-ins.
That is that's a sad fact, but sadly it's true, and I can say as the AGM for this group, I'm really happy that Caligo made it through, but that's just me being biased. But here we have Anka, like I said, being dominant with the 55 wins. So we have now the 12 teams for Rival who made it through to the play-ins playoffs. So let's see the bracket. Let's take a look at who's playing who, because that's obviously the most important part.
Oh,
And
So I just
because it's not play-ins this week. So we look at that bracket next week.
I just heard
Yeah.
I just heard at the back of my head, we don't have this bracket yet, but well, we can all know at least Onka made it through to the playoffs. That's one thing. So let's talk about the next year. Let's talk about Elite. Let's talk about the results of the Glaciers conference. Pegasus, what happened here?
well, first of all, I must say it was quite nice having Mal just whisper in my ear there. But let's get straight into this.
Yo.
Bladesmith proved themselves with a double win and a night draw to Caspian in my one-to-watch match last week. However, in their other ones, in my other ones to watches, we had Scorch and Prophet, who I said were in a play-in fight, and oh my word, ladies and gentlemen, it delivered. Prophet beat Deception 3-1 and lose to mid-table Anju. Scorch, huge double win, also beat Deception and sweep Saturnia. And that sweep is going to be very important because every game win counted. And I'm going to go quickly to Kingsman because I think all the excitement is in the next screen.
All right, well, Kingsman, take it away. Ignis Conference.
Man did try to skip Tavish, by the way. Should we just, for a moment, remind ourselves of that disrespect to Tavish? He has tried to take Tavish's job.
Not me.
Unbelievable. Yeah, absolutely awful. But
that's true.
Temple had a massive double win week. They got disqualified though, so we aren't going to talk about that. So Darkness, they found their first loss of the season to disqualified Temple. Again, not going to talk about that. Drakes, they go winless this week. A massive draw from its Cottles. They look to push towards top 6. And well, they couldn't find a result against Vanguards. And that game for Vanguards, well, it was going to be crucial, but they got disqualified. So it wasn't really crucial anyway. And, well, all the results were crucial. Only one team went double win, and they've been disqualified. So the table really opened up, as you can see.
I love how you talked about all the results for a team that was disqualified. So I'm not gonna say anything else. Let's just dive straight into the standings. Let's take a look at the teams who made it through, starting obviously in the Glaciers conference. So Pegasus, who made it through and who just didn't make it.
Okay, well, Deception, they lost to 6th and 7th, who then had to fight for themselves for that playing spot. As I said before, Scorch got a sweep against Saturnia and beat Deception. Profits also beat Deception with this same score, but lost to mid-table Anju. The goal difference was in the favour of Profits, but that is not how we do it here in the RSC. So let's look at the head-to-head. In Week 2, Scorch win 3-1. In Week 7, the most recent matchup, Profits win 3-1. So this final week battle for play-ins went to head-to-head goal difference, where Scorch won by 1 goal difference. It's incredible. I bet there are so many series, so many individual games that Profits are thinking of right now, where they could have squeaked out that extra goal, where they didn't let in that troll final goal late in this series, because that has cost them the entire season. But I'll talk about the rest of the table now. Bladesmith, they keep their first place. They got a double win. Renai sniped that second place spot from Caspian, and Rooks and Andrew move up the table with Scorch just about surviving, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, so we have the top 6 here of the Glaciers Conference. And like you said, Scorch made it through on 1 goal, which is insane to think about. That is the difference between 6 and 7 here. So, Kingsman, let's talk about the Ignis Conference. Is it as
Go on, Savage.
is it as exciting as Pegasus made the Glaciers Conference?
Well, no, it's like Tavish was telling it. Honestly, don't get me so big as this to read me a bedtime story.
I won't.
Honestly, he's screaming everywhere.
Sorry.
And well,
Sorry.
Darkness, Drakes, and Vanguards, your top 3. Darkness, they do get defeated. They join Bishops in the Week 9 1-loss crew. Drakes hold on to second on 47. Vanguards on 44. Temple get disqualified. Unlucky. Tigris move up to 4th place, 38 wins. They get that bye in the lower bracket. Carbo move up to 5th on 34. Thanatos get top 6 on 29. Has to be the lowest 6th place. And it's Kotl. They needed 1 game win to push them up. They would have never thought going into that final few games they needed a win. But it shows margins in the RSC with Serena, Zucci, and Zulu in 8th and 9th with 23 and 21. But honestly, with another week and knowing Temple would disqualified, that battle for 6 could have been so good.
Yeah, it could have been so much better, like you said. But we have now the 12 teams that made it through in Elite. Bracket will come in one of the following weeks, so let's move on to Master. We're slowly going to the top tier here, but first there is Master. So, Pegasus, what happened in Glaciers?
Well, heck were my team to watch to see if they could scrape themselves back into planes after their double win week, and unfortunately, they have tripped. They drew to Kings and got a loss to Illusion, and Illusion on a double win week also beating quite a high side here with Vulcan. Transcend and Infinity continue their fight for the first seed. Transcend sweeps Sophos, but then draw Iovi. Infinity beat Slytherin, but then shock fall to play in Fighter Messiahs. So both teams beating someone which you'd expect them to, and then not getting the results you would expect against teams lower down on the table. And we're in another situation where every single game win counted.
So, like you said, a lot of games that could have counted didn't count, maybe. But I'm curious to see how the standings shifted, because if I just take a quick glance at it in general, it's just like a couple draws, couple big results. And if I look at the Ignis Conference, we have the exact same thing, but only 2 sweeps. So, Kingsman, what happened in Ignis?
If you remember back to last week, it was a dogfight for first place between 3 teams. It was Haven, Hades, Montezuma. One of those teams went double win, and they might have taken the cake, as Montezuma beat 4th place Gladiators 3-1 and swept 5th place Serene 4-0 in a huge week and a huge comeback from 3rd place. Hades found their first loss of the season, joined the crew as they dropped to Nox, who weren't even in the top 6, and they drew to Haven. A game either way there would have determined a seed in that result, but it's not gonna be. And Togon and Abyss just sat on a lost draw week, their best weeks in the last 2 weeks. And Leo, they looked strong going into the final week, but nothing was given.
Yeah, so Hades joins the crew where they just lose one series. It's common. And like I said, 3 teams at the top battling it out who's gonna make it in the first seed. But before we're gonna see who finally got that crown, we're gonna talk about the standings in the Glaciers Conference first. So let's go there. And Pegasus, I see a lot of movement.
Well, I want to start off talking about the difference between play-ins and not making it. 3 game wins separated Messiahs and Slytherin. Those 3 game win difference from Messiahs came from beating Infinity, who dropped down to second in the final week. And it's a similar situation here. The goal difference in the favour of Transcend. But do I need to say it again? We don't do it like that here in RSC. The head-to-heads were week 4. Transcend win 3-1, and in week 8, Transcend get the same result again. A 6-2 record puts them ahead and gets them straight into Sunday. And Vulcan, with a win and a loss this week, managed to put themselves into that 3rd spot. Illusion now dropping out by only a 1-point difference, losing an entire life. That is really going to hurt. And Heck and Kings, it wasn't the greatest week for them, and that catch-up game just wasn't quite possible.
So here, you had it in the previous Glaciers in the conference as well. Now you have it as well. A head-to-head difference. Here in first place as well. And then there's a little bit of a difference between second and third, but still, so many teams so close to each other that anything could have happened. But now we had the 6th team from Glacier. So Kingsman, you had a 3-way tie at the top in Ignis. Who made it through?
Yeah, as we wait for the bracket to change, I will just say I've just found out my team came 9th, not 10th, so I did better than Tavish. So for those of you that can't see, I'm currently shushing everyone in the box because they underestimated me to come 10th. And look at me go, 9th place. I'm currently shushing everyone in the caster booth. They don't know what's hit them. But anyway, on to the least important thing. Montezuma, double win week. They clinched first place away from Hades, who had it all season long. You only needed a minute in the first, and it's got to be that final minute. Montezuma have done it. Hades dropped to second. They don't go to Saturday. And Hades and Haven 46 apiece. One more week could have been so much better. Gladiators on 40, a loss in that final week, huge. 3 Nara, the only team on double-digit wins not to make it into the top 4 this season and even be close to the top 3. So, brilliant results for them. Wyverns hold on to 6th place with a 50% win rate. Nox and Leo just dropped outside, and Abyss and Dogon weren't close for the rest of the season. So, tough weeks for those teams looking to push to top 3, but how close it ended, and that shows the definition of margins.
Yeah, Montezuma making it through with just 1 win above Hades and Haven. And Hades has been at the top of this table for so long. So it must be heartbreaking for the players that you lost against the 7th seed in your conference, and that cost you the 1st seed in the conference. So we'll see the bracket, how it played out in a couple weeks. First, we're going to Premier, the highest tier. We have a lot of big results, a lot of big names there. Starting with Glacies. Pegasus, what happened here?
Well, it's the first time, but I've got a full set of results to talk about, and it started off quite strong with Illusory versus Solace with a quick 3-1 win here. Click versus Brocker, or one of 3 sweeps we actually have here in the Glacies Conference, along with Council of Sir versus Visionary. Congratulations to your team, Kingsman, but I believe Visionary were using a substitute. Esportsberg. No. Okay. Esportsberg also getting themselves a sweep against Momentum, and Ox Gaming, unfortunately, their loss streak continues, beaten by a Fuser 3-1.
So three sweeps, sorry, and two decisive results with that as well. So, Kingsman, what happened in the Ignis conference?
Team Serene decided it was time to start playing their games as they got a 3-1 win over Oblivion at the top of the table. Panthera got a 4-0 sweep onto Kronos, but didn't really mean much for either side. Team Hosky got beaten by Shaman in what is going to be the result of the season for Shaman as it moved the table, you will see. Leviathans beat Tenebris, who started the season nicely in third place, but didn't end too well. And Must Do Flux roster rebuild, who beat Hosky, were looking for a top 6, aren't going to get it. Sentient Esports humble them back down. And well, there's sure to be some movement with lots of catch-up games being played this week. And well, everything to happen.
Yeah, last week when we looked at the standings, there were a lot of teams still on like 28 games that they played, so they had a couple series in hand. Now we are at the end, so everything is played. We have the final standings. Let's go to Glacies and Pegasus. Let's take a look at who made it through.
They felt like Visionary were the kings of Glacies Premier for the longest time, but in the final week, Esportsburg come in with a sweep against Momentum and take that #1 spot by only 1 game win. And it was actually quite close here. As you can see, Illusory behind Visionary by only 1 game win, who were equal with a Fuser, who lost sadly to the head-to-head, sending them into that 4th place spot. And the difference between 6th and 7th, obviously they only play 36 games here in Premier, but a 3-game difference. There was so much left to be played for, but they just couldn't get it over the line.
Yeah, so Visionary no longer the king in Glacies. Esportburg taking that. And then I want to say it was close between 6 and 7, but well, in Premier everything is close because one series basically decides it all for you since they only play one series a week. But Solace do be the dominant team. So we have the Glacies teams who made it through. Kingsman, let's take a look at the Ignis teams that.
Oh, we don't. Oh, no, we do. Oh, honestly, I love that. That was a brilliant transition, Mal. I'm proud of you. Anyway, Oblivion, 23rd, take the top spot, but look how close it was. 22, 22, 22. Top 4 separated by 1 singular game. That's the difference of margins. And Sentient, they dropped to 5th on 20 games. Leviathans hold off 6th with 2 wins in the last 2. And they get 19. Panthera sweep not enough on 17. Tenebris on 8 with 15 wins. And Kronos and Must Do Flux share the bottom spot on 10 wins. And Tavish, don't get excited. There isn't a bracket.
Yeah, I know. I was already like, whoa! But do you know the weird thing I see in this part is Team Husky not in the top 2. Ever since they've played in Premier, they've always been a top 2 team in their conference, and now they're not even there. Like, game wins, yeah, they're like excited, but they're not there. So lower bracket for Team Husky is crazy to think about. And I want to say we'll see it in the bracket, but we won't. So let's continue with the next part. We had all the tiers to talk about. We had 2 brackets already to talk about. We're going to franchise standings because all these results did have an impact on where the franchise ended. Okay. Well, I wanted to say let's take a look, but Mel is working on it in the background. Normally we have Sauce, but sadly he couldn't make it, so we have Mel taken over. But
What a shame.
Pegasus, Kingsman, we've had now all these results to talk about, and already 2 brackets to talk a little bit about. Our predictions will be in a little bit later. But out of the 6 tiers we have, which tier
So, for, for those of you that don't know, I've just been sat explaining the top 8, and Mal tells me when I'm going down to the 10th team, we don't have audio. So I'm going to scrap it. Pig, you take the bottom half. I'm going to absolutely storm out.
Okay, so we don't have any nice words to say, unfortunately, because the top half was gone. So let's talk about all the teams that didn't do so well. Starting off with Alpha Surge,
Damage.
2 game wins away of being onto that other screen, followed by Might of Hades, both with those red arrows next to them. But System of Solaris, late in the season, something I was actually realizing as I was going through the Glacies conference, made quite a lot of progress and get themselves here in 13th place. Illusory slightly behind with only 2 game wins, and then we get a 5 jump all the way to Momentum, and then this bottom 5, there's quite a distance from the top 5 on this screen. Click with, I believe that is a 16 difference here from Momentum, followed by DSQ, who made a bit of progress late into this. Fort Templar, Ox Gaming, and then, I mean, I think the cliche of RSCast is a week to forget, a week to forget. Unfortunately, it was a season to forget for Shaman, who are at the bottom of our franchise standings here for RSC 13.
Yeah, sadly, it was not the perfect season for Shaman, but yeah, the top 10 franchise we didn't really hear. Well, Pegasus and I heard a lot here, but sadly, but you could see everything, and in the bottom half, Pegasus explained it perfectly, and I see Kingsman on my screen slowly shaking his head. So, franchise standings done. Let's hope everything is set up, as it's a little bit of more scuffed cast than we normally have, but we'll just roll with it. So, Mel, if you are so kindly, please continue to the next screen. Yeah. So I do catch confirmation. We have it. We have a beautiful clip of the week montage. It is completely set up, and I see Kieran being completely weird here. But let's just roll the tape, I guess, and let's see what kind of masterminds we have here.
Okay. Oh my gosh. What's that action? Oh no. Goodbye. Oh no. Oh no. Might as well get me out of this.
Right? Second day. Oh my god, what a play.
Oh mate, it has to be clip of the week, man.
Yep. Alright, we're back. I thought we were gonna get a countdown, but we're back. Let's go. You can see our beautiful face. Well, I would say beautiful, maybe you think something else. But clip of the week, we have seen some beautiful things there. I see Kingsman's mind's already going different places, so I'm letting him cook for a little bit. Pegasus, what did you think?
I thought that goal from Maui was absolutely ridiculous. It was the last thing I could have expected from that entire scenario. You see them go up on the reverse. I'm like, okay, that's the clip. Maybe they get an air dribble. Maybe they get a flip reset. They do get a flip reset. Off the ball, off the ceiling. Maui channeling their inner zen in game week 9. And that is definitely going to be my pick for clip of the week.
So, Kingsman, what do you think? I think your brain has some time to process everything, so let's hear your thoughts.
I was more thinking gorgeous when we all came out, to be honest. Instead of Good looking. And well, yeah, clip of the week. It was some beautiful clips, but because I can never hit the shot myself when I try, I'm gonna go for the first shot we saw, which was Azumil's lovely wall read into the top left. Lovely little angle on it. And well, what can you do as a defender? You can't do anything. And well, as I'm sure Mr. 100% shooting, he only got that once. Will tell you. It was beautiful.
Yeah, Mr. 100% here. I agree, but I wanted to say let's take a look at how the poll is going. But sadly, that's not completely running. So please, if you're in Twitch, let us know who you think is the clip of the week
Ooh.
winner. But you know, I agree. We had a couple beautiful clips. For me, Maui as well. I have to give it to him. It's a beautiful one, where it's just like it's perfection. So let's roll the tape again, and in the meantime, let's hope the poll is going, and then afterwards, when we get back, we'll see who won it.
Okay. Oh my gosh. What's up, Watson? Goodbye. Oh no. Oh no. Get me out of this.
Right? That's day. Oh my god, what a play.
Oh, mate, it has to be clip of the week, man.
All right, we're back. Sorry for the little bit of a quick short break there, but clip of the week. I think it's safe to say Maui won it. I think if I look at Twitch chat, most of them are saying Maui won. So congratulations, Maui. Beautifully done there. But luckily, we also have a fill of the week. Some people also like to fill, and I have a feeling we're gonna see a five times fill of the week winner here on this cast. But let's just roll the tape. Let's see what happens.
Definitely my favourite there in Mentsu. Maybe trying to show bad magic, but Mox just says no. Throws them out. Bailey trying to create something off the corner themselves, unable to get that second touch. Again, it's the ball too heavy. Mentsu with a shot on target. But Sin was forced to make a save, had to stretch all the way into that top corner. But they managed. 10 seconds left to go. Will we see our first overtime of this series? Hydra want to shut it down. Oh my word, and Bailey.
Hang on. Finish.
Yes.
Open.
No! There's no fucking way.
14.
I'm 16, that's 16. Hang on. Finish.
Yes.
Open.
No!
Back with a beautiful fail, and I think Nicki Minaj here casted that series, so let's hear your thoughts.
I couldn't believe my eyes. I still don't quite believe my eyes. Even when I got atted on medal and watched it again from every other perspective, I just cannot fathom what happened there in the final seconds of the game. It would have won them it. It would have done the job, but no. They were forced to go to overtime because Avi, is such a high-tier player, simply forgot how to flip their car in the correct direction. It was a completely open net. But yeah, thoroughly deserving of the fail of the week. I knew when I saw it that it would feature here in the RSCast.
Yeah, Kingsman, what do you think?
Well, not that impressive for fail of the week. Come on, he just missed an open net. It's not like he's scored a banger redirect.
Yeah,
But
well-
honestly, no, that's normal for AV. I've bit was his GM at the start of the season. That is normal for AV, missing the easiest chances. I'm sure 60 will back me up when I say that. And yeah, somehow Encore have got fail of the week again as a team. I don't know how they do it, or they featured at least. This must be why they've got the same wins as the Shaman franchise in series as well. There's a fun fact for you if you didn't know. Onk have the same amount of series wins as every Shaman team combined. So,
Phew.
there you go.
Well, you know, Kingsman, not everyone can be as bad as you, that you have to win 4 times to even, you know, be respected by the rest. But let's roll the tape again, because it's just so beautiful to see people fail. And maybe it's not that it's a terrible fail, but they could have won that game, so it's just as beautiful. Let's roll again.
Definitely my favourite there, Mentsu. Maybe trying to show that magic, but Mox just says no, throws them out. Bailey trying to create something off the corner themselves, unable to get that second touch. Again, it's the ball too heavy. Mentsu with a shot on target. But Sin was forced to make a save, had to straight all the way into that top corner. Well, they managed. 10 seconds left to go. Will we see our first overtime of the series? Hydra want to shut it down. Oh my word, and Bailey.
Hang on. Finish.
Yes.
Open.
No! There's no fucking way.
14.
I'm 16, that's 16 now. Hang on. Finish.
Yes.
Open.
No!
Alright, we're back with that. Nah, we looked another time at that beautiful fail, and here you have another fail, Kingsman not being able to sit on screen. Well, there we have it. Clip of the week, fail of the week, and he's pointing in the wrong direction. Let's let's take a look at the weekly awards, because obviously with all the results that we had, we have a lot to talk about. So, weekly awards, we're gonna start in Prospect.
Ooh.
Pegasus, take it away.
Well, I like this. We are straight in. They're all working. Let's start off with our MVP here. We get pure skill for Taisho with 529 average points per game. The only player to have over 500 this week. And it's all drawn here for the gold, silver, and bronze for finisher. The goals per game is 1.5 for Chomps, Grabsy, and Melty Crispy. And here for shooting percentage, we've got Descent with a 0.6, closely followed by Chomps with a 0.5 seconds, who's also closely followed by AJ V Sui. That's how I'm going to pronounce it for today. Playmaker, the assist per game, all drawn again, just like the finisher stat. It's Grabsy again, managing to at least get gold this time, along with Trixer and Callie for the 1 assist per game. And now moving on to saves. Cold Fire of Illusory, saving their team when it was needed most. 3 saves in every single game on average. Morikonda closely following with 2.88.
Yeah, moving up the tiers into Challenger. Oh my god, he's done it again. What the? How has he frauded it again?
Wow.
What the fraud? And I'm not talking about Adam Bomb either. I have massive respect for that guy on 494 points per game. Wait, is it? No.
This is the one from last week.
I was just thinking, is this not the one from last week?
Oh.
I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
no.
this is the one from last week, chat. So, yeah, I don't really know what to say. Yeah, and Stingray points out in chat as well. Is this all of last week's? I'm gonna double check for everyone real quick. Let's just go through. Yeah, it was the same as last week. Rival last week, Mal, was Mithril, AV, Lankai times 2, and Mithril. Yeah, it's
Right.
it's week 8. So Pure
Let's-
Skill did not win it.
All right, so while we're gonna look at this beautiful image of my name in the middle, which
No,
I
get off.
appreciate because normally I'm in the middle as well.
So Pegasus has just been
Did I hear that?
whistling
Did I hear
for
that?
the past
Okay.
5 minutes about this. Oh, and oh, what the hell? How did Kingsman? This is gonna be good. We
I'm
didn't in fact
interested.
crash. This is just Mal messing
I'm
around.
interested.
I'm interested in what's gonna go through this. How did Kingsman? This is the most important prediction of the night, ladies and gents. Oh, never mind. How did Kingsman get 4 fail of the weeks? Being
Good
bad, being
question.
put in the wrong
Good
tier.
question.
Hashtag allow Kingsman to go back to elite.
this is incredible. This is incredible. One for the ages. Everyone's gonna remember this. Kingsman, who told you you're not playing in playoffs? Who broke your heart this week?
Well, I mean, I was told I was first all season long. So
Oh.
I was throwing series along
Good enough.
all the way through, but I just found out I was 1 times 10 and then got 9th, and I was ecstatic, to be honest. Being
Yeah.
10th all season long does things to a man. I'm sure Tavish would be able to tell you that. And I'm sure when we come back here next week, Sir Pegasus will be able to tell what it's like to get double first rounded. So we're all equal.
Okay. On a
Alright,
minute, I cannot wait to see your predictions if you put your money where your mouth is here, Kingsman. I am not having that. I can't wait for you to see my predictions for
definitely.
your team. But
What a
Mal,
shame.
word in our ear, I think we might get ourselves another screen. So say goodbye to sick-looking Kingsman. We've got ourselves prospect players of the week, and I'll start us off yet again. Well, the MVP and the finisher, it all went to the same person. 720 points per game. That is ridiculous. Did they only play 1 game? Did they play all 8? I've never seen a stat that all 8.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow. That is incredible. I have never seen a stat like that before. So, soloing System of Salaries all the way up the franchise standings. But let's make our way down here with the Roma's Games getting our striker here with a 0.7 shooting percentage. Not quite the 1 which we saw from Tavish last week. And then moving on to Playmaker, my former ERS teammate, it's DSQ Kieran with a 1.5 assists per game. Now moving on to Saviour, we had a lot more Team Serene last week, but Fluester, I'm the third in command for this team, and I clearly cannot pronounce my own player's name, but 2.86 saves per game, our newest signing, showing themselves very, very nicely.
And well, moving up the tiers to hopefully Challenger. See, this is what happens when Mal is prepared. Cynics is going to take your MVP by 1 point ahead of Bites, who is your finisher. He does get rewarded something. And the Fraud, finally, not in the striker. It's going to be Ozan with 70% shooting XG. Akmo, never heard of the guy, but he's doing good things with a 1.75 assists per game. I don't know who he's subbed in for, but he's made an impact somewhere. And Cynics, he goes back for the double, the MVP and the saviour, 3.13 saves per game.
And hopefully soon we'll be moving into rival. There we go, Sin. I watched this person play on stream. Unbelievable player, and you can see why here. 563 points per game in game week 9, along with a 2.0 goals per game. And moving down, we get some more system as salaries. It's elusive with a 0.65 shooting percentage, and Rambo, the playmaker, providing for elusive with a 2.5 assists per game. And here in the save it, we have ourselves Sarju with 2.38 saves per game, slowly followed by, I think it's Bicho. We're gonna go with that.
What he doesn't know is he's got that massively wrong.
Oh, well.
Everyone from the Illusory Six Mans knows him as Bicho. Come on.
When have
It's
I ever
Bicho.
been good at names here, Kingsman?
Biggest
When have I
it's
ever been
come
good
on,
at
man.
names?
It's Bicho, man.
I'm sorry.
As we
Oh.
slowly wait for a Mal's brain to load. He said it's hard, and I'm gonna leave that to your guys' imagination. And anyway,
Oh.
Gamey is your MVP with
Oh.
526 points per game for Forge. A reason why they finished, I believe, top of the Glacies conference, followed by Sharky for Tigris, and then Saf bottom of the table, but he's top of the striker for this week with Wessel on top for assists with 1.25 assists per game. And Rapids, I don't know how he's frauded himself to an award. Personally, I think Kevin should have been first, but Rapids going to be first, tied with Cakes and 385 with 2.5 saves per game.
And we go straight to Master here. Might of Hades taking our first 2 spots, and it's all because of Jazz. A 570 points per game, followed by Rapidza, who had a 525 any other week, and I'm sure they would be taking that spot of gold. But Jazz, with their 2.13 goals per game, managed to sneak it past. And here in the striker, we have Alpha Surges. Ooh, Ripure, once again, definitely butchered that. But what they're not butchering is their shots on net. 54.55 shooting percentage. And moving on to Playmaker, we have Juice Squiver, 1.5 assists per game, almost equal. I just completely... my eyes just flickered there. Mr. Squirm with 1.38 closely following behind. But it's our saviour here. Rapids getting a silver on an MVP. Gets gold here with a 2.5 saves per game.
And heading over to the new transition with Week 7 Premier. Icon is going to be your MVP and your finisher. Doing them dirty, almost got 3 this week, but Dansku's going to pick up the striker. And Stealth RL, he was the team player this week with 1.25 assists per game and 3 saves per game. What a week for 2 players.
And here we are. We've got ourselves the team of the week. The graphic is working. Let's start ourselves off in Prospect with Trickster of Terror getting themselves into the team of the week. Kincaid of Kapakli, who I get nightmares of every night. Sin of Onka. Spooks of Scorch. We remember the storyline earlier. They managed to scrape themselves in with a head-to-head goal differential of 1, and it's that incredible week from Spooks that gets them into that position. Following on into Master, we've got the big myth of Illusion, and finishing it off, they snipe the spots away from Visionary. It's Icon.
Well, moving over to fantasies we do for this week, and I'm going to give a bit of a long rundown for this. So, I do the fantasy side, and Mox is going to be your weekly top 3, and he's going to be your overall fantasy winner. He's the man this week. If you want to be building imaginary teams, it's going to be him. And what a season he's had, absolutely dominating all season round. And well, for this week, it's going to be Mox in Master and Elite, Mr. Efficiency in Rival, Ronan in Challenger, and Yannick in Prospect. But overall this season, your winner for each tier was Stingray with 2,604 points in Master. In Elite was Mox with 2,887 points. In Rival it was Ark with 2,916 points. In Challenger it was Ronan with 2,427 points. In Prospect it was Mox with 2,461 tiers. And obviously overall it was Mox as well.
And moving on to the predictions, the weekly top 3, it's Stingray with 37 points, followed by Mox and Arch on equal 35s. And the overall leaderboard, we see Arch here by quite a fair distance here, 30 points clear of second. It's Arch with 243, Mox with 213, followed by Stingray at 210. And I've got some extra information here sent by Arch himself. For Master tier in the predictions, we had Ronan on 56 points. Elite, it was Maisie with 58. Rival, it was Andre with 62. Challenger, I think it's Axelos with 56. And Mal has corrected me. It is Axwas, Goofy and Silly with 56 points. Prospect, it was Mithral with 50. And overall, Arch has written myself without winning a tier and 30 points clear of second. 243.
Yeah, and there we have it. The weekly awards, the team of the week, and the fantasy leaderboards. A lot to digest, we know, but now we come to the part that the three of us really like to talk about, because we get to talk about our predictions for the two play-ins that are happening this week. Obviously, Prospect and Challenger already looked at the brackets that are going to happen, but now we get to talk about what we think is going to happen. So if Mel is ready, we're gonna start with the first one. And well,
All I'm going to say beforehand, while we wait for Mal, is how did I come ninth? I'm going to sum it up in a few words. Actually, not even a few words. One word I'm going to sum it up. How did I come ninth? Pesky.
Yeah, that is just you pushing blame to someone else. But
Oh.
we are ready to go. Pegasus, we're gonna talk about your bracket first, so take it away.
Well, let's start here at the lower bracket here. It was Jubatas versus Propel. I predicted them to beat them pretty confidently with a 3-1 win to then face Taisho. I gave this a game 5 to let them advance through the lower bracket. And one of your matches to watch, it was Livens versus Pawns. I have gone for Livens here, but I know my two hosts will be thinking very differently about those results. But Pawns were not supposed to be there, so they won't advance any further. In the final week, I but I had to look at some things, recognized a few players, and that's where I put all my predictions to. Mal, I believe, is back. I have completed playing, so hopefully he can move on to another prediction. Well, there we go. We're on to playoffs. Naja and Obscurity. I've let the first seed teams take their wins. Palmis losing in a game 5. Alta getting completely swept. And then Naja versus Obscurity. I thought this was going to be a close matchup. This was one of the instances where I actually did look at the two teams. I think Naja will be going straight into the grand final, and the lower bracket run here for Taisho and Newborn is looking a lot stronger for Newborn. I liked their roster. I believed in them. I think they'll go to the lower final. But Obscurity, they're going to be angry. They're going to be wanting revenge. And I think they'll get it. Bracket reset. Source's biggest nightmare. Naja will be taken down.
Alright, biggest predictions. Let's talk about mine. I do agree on a couple results, not on a lot. So let's start lower bracket. I think Jabate is gonna win against Propel in a game 5, and then they move on, but Taisho will beat them pretty confidently. And then live is against Pawns. Sorry, Kingsman, I have to back my own franchise here against your franchise. But I have to give credit to Newborn. I think they are just in general a stronger roster, so they'll move on and beat Livens 3-2. And then in the upper brackets, Alter will win against Terra, and Palmist will win against Mosaic. So then you have Alter and Palmist move on through the upper bracket, Terra, Mosaic, Taisho, and Newborn going through the lower bracket to the playoffs. And then with the bracket loading, we'll see how I predict the rest. So Naja versus Alter, I think it's not gonna go in Naja. I think Alter has a steady roster that will just clutch it out in the end in a game 5. And Obscurity, Palmist, I think that's also going to be a game 5, but Obscurity just a little bit stronger. So those two will move to the upper final. And then in the lower bracket, you'll have Taisho taking it over Terra, and then Taisho having to face off against Palmist. They are on a momentum that they can take it, so they'll move on to the lower semi. Mosaic against Newborn will also be a game 5 scenario. But then Mosaic, they come on against Naja being on a revenge tour here, taking a sweep over Mosaic. You would have Taisho and Naja in the lower semi, where I think it's going to be a very close one, in a game 5 scenario, where Naja will take it in the end. Then the upper final, Obscurity taking it over Alter. Alter and Naja get a rematch in the lower final. Also a game 5 scenario, just the other way around, and then Naja Obscurity will meet in the grand finals with Obscurity taking it in a 4-2 win. So that's my bracket. Kingsman, let's hear yours.
Well, I did these at work today, and I had Stingray feeding me the scores. So me and him had a little discussion on some of these. I've had a bit of help on. Well, we'll see the help later on, because being at work is stressful when you have to try and do these things on a deadline. Anyway, Alter versus Terra. I'm going to start in the upper bracket. 3-1. As much as Trix has been carrying Yannick and Sicko all season long, I don't think he's going to be able to carry any more against a very strong Alter side that have been pushing through this season and have had a double win week off of their losses. So I think it's going to be a good result for them. And I think Mosaic are far stronger. The team chemistry they're going to have the mental capacity and the mental advantage in such a high-pressure situation. I think it's going to allow them in a game 5 to just not walk it. I think they're all going to be close games. But I don't think Palmist will have that chemistry. Moving down to the lower bracket, Propel 3, Jabatus 0. Again, they've got two people teaming outside of RSC Propel, so they'll be playing all the time leading up to this. And again, chemistry in these situations is massive. As much as it's only 2 days away, their communication and chemistry, I think, will just give them the advantage against, I think, a very too confident Jabatus side. Pawns versus Livens, again, Tavish, I had to back my franchise because the one time I didn't last season, they went and made an amazing player front. So I'm going to had it at game 5 because I still know Livens are a strong side. And then I'm going to have Newborns just far too strong. I think they kept Gav last season, who's an incredible player. So, got to keep going. And I think Propeller going to beat Taisho 3-1. I think that we see it every season. The teams that have played the extra series have the warm-up and they have the advantage going into it. And I think Serene Taisho will pull a game, but I don't think it'll be enough. And anyway, moving on to the playoffs. Lower bracket, Terra Propel. to Terra, I think Trixer's going to show his true form, and he's going to get them through the first draw of the day as a 3-0. And I think Newborn are going to send Palmist home in a double first round. A game 5 nonetheless. This was a coin toss on my side, but Newborn have that playoffs experience, which again is key at stages like this. Mosaic Obscurity, again, it's a game 5 either way. Obscurity have been so strong all season long, but I still think that team chemistry is going to be massive going into this. And Naja Alta 3-0. Naja have been dominant all season long, up into the final few weeks. I think if they can get their mojo back, they might be able to do it. And I think it gets an Alta side that's had one good run in the final few weeks, that I think Naja will be able to take it. Then we're going to move back onto the lower bracket. We're jumping up and down, up and down, as we see Obscurity take it in a game 5 with Terra. As good as Trixer is, Obscurity as a team are far much better. And I'm going to keep hyping up Trixer because he is a brilliant player in Prospect, but I don't think the team around him will be able to get him far in playoffs. And I think Newborn are going to have that high flow of momentum, and they're going to beat Alta 3-1, I think, which is probably going to be the shock of the playoffs, as they were to knock them out. And Obscurity, Newborn again, coin toss. And Newborn have that mentality of last season. I'm convinced mentality and chemistry is huge. So this is what I'm backing a lot of my predictions off. And I think Obscurity are just going to have it. I think that league play form just gives them the example. Gives them the edge over them. And I think Mosaic coming down from that lower bracket. Oh, no, actually, we're going to go up to the upper bracket. Because I forgot we haven't shown who's coming in the lower final yet. I think Naja are going to have that momentum after a strong sweep over Alta. And they're going to go 3-1 in the upper final. A big result for Naja. And it will send Mosaic down to beat Obscurity. Now, I haven't looked at form going into this, but I know Stones, and I believe it's Gandhi, have what it takes to bounce back from a loss. Their mental is very good. And they're going into the finals. Obviously, you have that hour break between upper finals and grand finals. So I think that break is just going to be a bit too much for Naja. Mosaic can have the momentum, the 4-2, and then they have the mental advantage going into that. So I think it's going to be 2 game 6s, but I think Mosaic comes up on top.
All right, so we have 3 predictions, and in the meantime, Art joined us as well, so he can do his own prediction. So Art, I'm going to give this one to you.
Thank you, thank you. It's not often I back DSQ in a playoff, but here we go. Don't be sorry, Tavish. Pawns shouldn't be there. They've got a minus 36 goal difference. They've only won 1 in 5. The team is thrown together very late in the season. So I just don't think they have enough to beat Livens, who have been quite consistent with Kieran leading them this season. They have won 9, drawn 3, lost 6, and have won 3 of the last 5, drawing the other 2. So I do believe Livens will go through in this one. On the other side of the bracket, we've got Jubatus and Propel. I've got Jubatus winning 3-2. Now, usually I'd back Propel here. However, Jubatus have been on one hell of a run since rebuilding that roster. I think they brought in like a BGCS type matey team, and they've all got chemistry together. And the recent results show, I think they've got 3 or 4 sweeps in the last 5, 4 wins, 1 draw. And I just don't think Propel have enough to beat Jubatus this time. Maybe last season with their old roster, but this season I just think it's a bit too much of a step for Neuronics to go from a sub last season to a main roster player here in playoffs. The next round, we've got Taisho versus Jubatus. I was tempted to go for Jubatus here, but I'm going to back Serenity's team because he has faith in pure skill this season. They did climb up to second in the final, second to last week, and then through it with a draw and a loss this week. And Jubatus did finish 6th, so I've gone Taisho there. And with Newborn versus Livens, I backed Newborn to win the tier at the beginning of the season. Now, I don't think they're at that stage yet, but they have won 9 and only lost 4 with 3 wins in the last 5, so I do think Newborn will outpace Livens in this game. Alta versus Terra, this is a coin flip. I mean, everything about Trixer at the minute screams like he's the best in the tier. He's the highest peak in prospect, I think, ever in this tier after draft. I think he's nearly 1,600. So it was a coin flip, but I have faith in Sanctuary Boys and obviously AR leading that roster, and I think Krezes is a really solid player, so I think that's going to go to a game 5. And then Parmis Mosaic. Again, I don't know enough about Mosaic. I haven't seen them on stream. I haven't seen them play. I haven't heard anyone talk about them. The only thing for me is that Gandhi's commitment to the game, and it always will be, like whether he'll turn up on the day. So Parmis have 49 wins, which is the joint second highest in the tier. 3 wins in the last 5, so I've just got Parmis edging it out here. Going into the playoffs, in the upper bracket, I've got Naja edging out Alta in a game 5. I would have put Naja to win quicker here if it wasn't for the result last night. They got swept by Terra. Obviously, Tricks are doing his job there. But I do think this will be a very close game. I think Naja have dropped off a little bit in the last few weeks with 3 draws and 1 loss in the last 5. They need to find that winning ways and they need to do it quickly. But they do have the benefit of going in first seed. Next up, we've got Obscurity versus Parmis. This is a coin flip again for me. Obscurity got the most wins in the tier, and Parmis got the joint second most. But Obscurity has been flying all season. They've got 13 wins, which is 1 more than Parmis and 2 more than Naja. So I think they'll advance into the upper final. In the lower bracket, I've got Terra beating Taisho 3-1. I really wanted to back Taisho here, but if Trixer is playing and he's on form, then I don't see Taisho keeping up any sort of momentum, especially with the results this week. And then Newborn beating Mosaic 3-2. Again, I don't know enough about Mosaic, to be honest, and that's the only reason I've got Newborn here, because I predicted them to do well at the beginning of the season. Terra versus Parmis. Again, Trixer makes it a coin flip for me. If he's on form, then they could beat anyone and go all the way. But Parmis have been consistent all season and haven't lost in the last 5. And then I've got Ulta beating Newborn 3-1. Again, coin flip. I couldn't really pick a winner. Newborn, I really like them since the beginning of the season, but they've lost 2 of the last 3. Into the lower semi, I've got Parmis beating Ulta 3-2. Again, coin flip. I think there's going to be a lot of game 5s in this prospect playoffs. In the upper final, I've got Obscurity beating Naja 3-1. Again, Obscurity have been the most consistent team across the whole of the season, I think. They've got the most wins in the tier, and I think Naja fell off a little bit in the last few weeks. Going into the lower final, Naja to beat Parmis 3-1. Again, nothing to really split the teams. They finished on the same amount of game wins. Parmis got 1 more series win. On current form, it'd be Parmis, but I just think Naja have been the stronger team across the season. And then into the grand final, I've got Obscurity beating Naja 4-2, and I think Melty Crispy will finally win Prospect.
All right, so those are our prospect predictions, and the funny thing here is 3 of us predict Obscurity to win. All 4 of us predict Naja to become second, and the only one who think Mosaic is gonna make a top 3 appearance is Kingsman, who's gonna think they're making first spot. So a lot of differences here between the 4 of us in a little bit the top 3. But one thing we can say, Naja is gonna end second. So let's see in the coming week if that's truly going to happen. So now let's move on to the challenger predictions. Pegasus, starting with you.
Well, it's time to make some enemies. The only host here to make the Challenger planes and playoffs has to start us all off. And let's start in the lower bracket. Crusaders versus Galvier. As much as I'd love to see Hecky and Punky on stream absolutely killing it, I think he'll go to a game 5. And I think Crusaders will just about edge them out. Next, we've got Orcus versus Mischief. Orcus, I think I've done them a little bit dirty here because with their next matchup, because they are a really strong team. My team knows them as the Giant Killers. They've taken points away from the top 3 teams, fizzled at least a draw and a loss from every single one of us. But Neptunium I don't know what it is about them. In the last 5 results, they've had 4 wins. That is half of their wins the entire season. I don't know if there was a roster change. I don't know if there was a playstyle difference, but Neptunium are looking different, and I really want to back them and send them into the playoffs. Now, Eclipse, they got edged out, went to 4th place. They recently made a new signing. It is my good friend GC Exile, who I think could end up being the signing of the season. Eclipse are a team to watch. I think they'll easily sweep past Crusaders, and you'll see what I think about their run later. But for the upper bracket, trying to fight to keep those 2 lives on Sunday, starting off with Kapactli versus Apprentices. I've been a bit disappointed with Apprentices recently. I've kept a close eye on all the top teams in both conferences, and they've been dropping draws to teams they really shouldn't do, and even a few losses. And Kapactli, I think they'll completely take them. A sweep, knocking Apprentices into the lower bracket. Now, Feather versus Shrine. Feather, a team that I think has been on the up recently. They made a bit of progress on the table here. But Shrine, I've had experience with them. I think they can take it to the game 5. They're a team that has slipped up recently, and Feather are on the up, which is why I just think they'll meet near the middle. Shrine will keep that second life, leading us into playoffs. And I want to start off with an apology. Kingsman Gas, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at your screens right. The first seed in the Glacies Conference, Bishop, I have picked to be double rounded, and I think this is going to be the most controversial decision, and I'm going to back myself. These are my focusing. First of all, Kapactli have made a roster change recently. They obviously are boogeymen. First of all, I think they take down Bishops. Bishops, they had arguably the best player in the league, Sandusk. He's a hard player to replace. In the past 6 games or 5 games, I believe it has been 2 wins, 3 draws, and a loss, ending their undefeated streak. So unless they can pick something up in the game week, I want to be proven wrong here. But Yamato versus Shrine, we have faced them twice this season. I reckon we will take them again and progress into the upper finals. Obviously, I'm going to have that little bit of bias. But into the lower bracket, Eclipse versus Apprentices. There are 2 defensive powerhouses on both teams. Nolarin, I had the chance to play with him last season. He has improved so much as a player, but my childhood friend GCXO paired with Bits, I reckon will take them to a game 4 and knock down this Forge side. Now, Neptunium, this has been my shock team. The one that I've said I've made an incredible run. They're on a great run of form. I've decided I'm just going to back them, and they're going to go on a run across the lower bracket, including beating Kingsman's Bishop's side. I at least put it to a game 5. But look, I want a bit of excitement. I want a bit of content. I don't want the same top 3s for everyone. And now Eclipse versus Shrine. It will be a close game. I don't think the 3-1 will do the entire match justice. I think they're going to be scrapes each time, but I think Eclipse advance into the lowest semis. Now into this upper finals, Kapactli versus Yamato. This has been our boogeyman. The record at the moment, as a little update, is Kapactli 8, Yamato 0. But look, all curses, we got to make it come to the end on Sunday, on the championship day, and I reckon we'll do it. We'll keep our upper bracket, and we'll secure ourselves a spot in a grand final with 2 lives. Now, Eclipse versus Neptunium, they're going on a Cinderella lower bracket run. It comes to the end here. Eclipse closed that book very swiftly with a 3-1 win. Now, going into the lower finals, Kapactli versus Eclipse. My team's boogeyman versus my childhood friend, and I've gone for the boogeyman. Kapactli, 2nd place in my conference. I reckon will take down Eclipse in an extremely close series. Kapactli are going to be stretched pretty wide throughout the entire playoff Sunday, because I expect them to face us in the grand finals. Let's not mess about with a bracket reset. Let's go straight to the game 7. Let's give the casters something to talk about, and let's hope that for the first time ever, I can be the one getting interviewed instead of doing the interview. I've gone for full-on storyline. I've gone for excitement. And let's see if you three can beat that.
Yeah, you're saying you're going for storyline and excitement, but I think you're just boosting a little bit your own ego there. But I must agree,
Always.
it's
Always.
I agree on a couple results. So let me quickly go here. Starting in upper bracket this time, I think Apprentices is gonna take a 3-1 victory over Capacity. I think Apprentice is just a better roster. Shrine will take a sweep over Feather. I don't see Feather really doing well in that series. I think Shrine is just a better team. It's just an easy answer. Galvia versus Crusaders. I think it's gonna go game 5, but I believe in Hacky that he's gonna pull through, that he's gonna win that series. Later on, he will lose to Eclipse, sadly, because Eclipse is just the better roster there. Orcus against Mischief is gonna be a quick sweep for Orcus, and then Orcus against Neptunium is gonna be a 3-1 victory against Neptunium. I have one very biased result, that is Galvia versus Crusaders, because I just want to see that happening. The rest, I do think is gonna happen like this. And then it will be Apprentice as Shrine moving into the upper bracket, Capacity, Feather, Eclipse, and Orcus going into the lower bracket of playoffs. And then they'll be joined by Bishops and Yamato. And then starting in that upper bracket, I think Bishop's gonna take a 3-1 victory over Apprentices. Yes, Kingsman, I have faith in your franchise here. I'm not like Sir Pegasus. And then Yamato will win in game 5 against Shrine. I think it's gonna be a very close series there. And then in that upper final, Yamato and Bishops facing off against each other. I do think it's gonna be a game 5. That those two teams are just way too close to each other. But Yamato, I have to give them the edge that they're gonna make it in the end. And then the lower bracket, Eclipse versus Capacity. I think Capacity, just the stronger team out of the two, will take a 3-1 victory. Who will then face off against Shrine, but Shrine probably on that revenge tour. They lost in a game 5 to Yamato. They're full of rage. They wanna make it back, so they're gonna sweep Capacity and make it to the lower semi. Then Orcus against Feather. Feather, just a strong roster. Strong enough, no, way stronger than Orcus, so they will sweep there. And then Apprentices, not having a good result against Bishop in the upper bracket, so I think Feather can ride a momentum that they'll sweep Apprentices as well. Feather and Shrine in the lower semi. I think at this point everything's going to be a close game, so game 5 for me there, and I think Shrine will clutch it out, but it's a coin toss. I think Feather can take it as well. Just depends on who has the more momentum going into that series. Then Shrine against Bishops. I really wanted to give this one to Shrine, but I think Bishop is just the stronger roster out of the two here. It will be a game 5. It wouldn't surprise me if this would be an overtime scenario or a 0-second goal, something crazy happening in that series. But then you would have Yamato and Bishops in the grand final. And I do think this is going to be a bracket reset. Yamato, still a very strong team going into that grand final, but Bishops riding that momentum. They don't have to wait for anything, so they can just go straight into it and continue what they've been doing. But then afterwards, Yamato, they will bounce back and they will take it in 6 in that bracket reset. I could be wrong there. I might be hoping a little bit too much there in the bracket reset, but that's just the way it is. So now giving it to you, Kingsman. Let's see your prediction.
Well, I have predictions, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm back. I'm going with Tavish. I want to believe in Heki. So I have Gelbvi winning in game 5, 3-2, and then quickly getting swept off their feet by Eclipse, who were tied going in to that final game week. 10 wins for them and unbeaten in the last 5. That form really argues against itself. But Mischief, I have them sweeping Orcus purely because I've seen some of the players on that Mischief side, and that is a dangerous side if they can get their game together. And I think as good as Orcus's form has been, I think when there's pressure added to it, then I think they might crumble, and I think Mischief will take that. But either way, I think Neptunium will beat whoever goes through. Neptunium, I casted them in a series versus Gelbvi, and whoa, they looked composed, they looked calm, they looked dominant. They looked ready for playoffs, and I think the same will happen. Shrine versus Feather. Shrine have been on a tear all season long. As good as Feather are, they've picked up some bad form recently. It stopped them getting closer, and their lucky apprentices run on some bad form as well. But I still think Shrine will take that in a 3-0. Shrine, they might not have had a good few run, but I trust in B-Shake here. And then Apprentices versus Kapakli, I have that as a 3-1. Apprentices, they've been up, down, up, down, up, down. But I think that when the pressure's on Kapakli, they might crumble a little. Obviously, it's all good in league play because you know you're in the top 6, you know you'll make it. But as soon as that kickoff in game number 1 hits, there's pressure. There's added pressure. And I think players that, from what I've heard as well, don't have the mental capacity to cope with it. I think they really struggle in playoffs, and I think sometimes that brings teams down. So, I see Apprentices taking that in a game 4. Moving on to the playoffs. I have Bishops taking Apprentices in game 5. I would have had this as a sweep, but I'll be honest, our form at the minute is not looking too great. And I think they'll be a bit colder going into this series. And admittedly, I will be honest, I am coaching this team all week. So I'm expecting big from them. I'm coaching them through multiple scrims and replay reviews. So I'm going big with them. I have faith in them. They can do it. But anyway, Shrine Serene Yamato. I don't see all the hype personally behind Serene Yamato. I know J-Worbs is a sensational player on his day. And that roster could work. But J-Wolves and I'm gonna get the roster up because I've completely lost. I've just closed my notes. So
Do you want me to fill you in on the roster?
No. I don't want you to fill in. Pegasus raids. Pegasus on the bench, I guarantee. But yeah, you got J-Worbs, Meaty Pig, Sir Pegasus, and raids. And still, I still back that Shrine team because as of last season was a brilliant player. Ozon, from what I've heard, has been sensationally consistent. And that's what you need going into playoffs. You need a consistent roster, not a high show mechanical roster, which I think is more on that Serene Yamato side. And moving down into the lower bracket, I see Kapakli beating Clips. That roster change for Kapakli will do them so good, and I think they'll be motivated to push on. And now Neptunium, I said they look dominant. I see them beating Feather 3-1 here in a brilliant shock result, and they'll go on a bit of a shock run you see later. Neptunium, 2 Blue, 2 Luke, and Moro DK have just had the team chemistry and looked sensational. But I think Serene Yamato will pick themselves up and get a sweep over Kapakli. Bear in mind, Kapakli haven't lost to Serene Yamato. Or the other way around. I can't remember which way I said it. But come on, Serene Yamato have got the hype man himself in Sir Pegasus. I believe with that kind of mental backing, any team can be pushed on. I think they'll get a sweep there, and they'll go on to 3-2 at Neptunium, who beat Apprentices 3-1. I think Apprentices will be down in the mud after their result. Again, Nolara not one known for his good mental, let's just say. And I think he'll be shot after a Game 5 loss to Bishops. And then, obviously, Serene Yamato, Neptunium, again, a coin toss. But I think from Serene Yamato's pure performance in league play, I think it'll push them to a Game 5. And then in the upper bracket, again, this was a massive coin toss. But I'm backing the boys. They didn't go unbeaten for 8 weeks for no reason. They were a very strong roster. Borsvel, Ronan, and Rube. Rube is a sensational player on his day. And I believe he will be guiding that team through with a Game 5 win over Shrine. All very close games, bear in mind. And then I see Shrine, they just don't have the mentality going into it. And I see Serene Yamato picking up on that. They'll be hungry for revenge in a 3-1 win over Shrine, sending them to 3rd place. And then I see Bishops, Serene Yamato. I don't think this even needs a bracket reset. I think Bishops will just be stronger in general and take it in a 4-3. Game 7, I think nerves will be all over the place. And I have a feeling it's going to be a scrappy goal for that game 7. If this is what happens, I believe it's going to be a scrappy goal, a mistake somewhere in the lines, and that Serene Yamato Tide will be kicking themselves. But I trust in the boys.
So 3 predictions done. Now going to the final prediction here. Ark, let's take it away.
Well, I'm going to start off. You were apologising earlier, sir, because, but in the words of Conor McGregor, I apologise to absolutely no one. If Kingsman's coaching Bishops, get ready for fails of the week in playoffs. That's what I'm going to say. But we start off with the play-ins. Mischief 1, Orcus 3. Orcus have been on a really good run recently. They are a good team, but that 3-1 loss against Pardus this week just kind of takes the shine off that roster a little bit. I haven't seen Red Ren play since he was on my prospect team, and they didn't get a win all season. So I'm hoping that he's improved a lot to get them through this Challenger play-ins. On the other side of the bracket, I've got Crusaders beating Gelvier 3-2. Gelvier are like the Spurs of the Premier League. They spend a lot of the season in the top 4, and then they just throw it. Like in the final week, they're 35 for 37. They're a -6 goal difference. They've won 1 game in 5. As Roy Keane says, it's very Spursy. The next round, I've got Eclipse beating Crusaders 3-0. I'm raising you, Sir Pegasus, and I'm going 1 better. We'll see that on the next screen. But I've got them to totally sweep Crusaders here. And I think D-Lynch is still waiting for a confirmation off 1 player as well. So that's a bit of information there. On the bottom bracket again, we've got Neptunian beating Orcus 3-1. Again, I do rate Orcus, and like Pegasus said, they're a really good team. And they've done a lot of giant killing. But if you're losing to the team that's like 8th in the league and they get a win against you to go 7th in the final week, it kind of takes the shine off it and the momentum that they had. Whereas Neptunian beat Gelvier on stream 3-1 pretty comfortably. I was really impressed with their roster. I think, is it Abdul and Mauro were working really well together? Hadn't really seen that roster, but I really rate Blue Luke from last season. In the upper play-ins, we've got Chipatley 3, Apprentices 1. Apprentices are another team who fell off the boil. They were really, really good in the first half of the season, but they've kind of dropped points here and there. They've won 1 in the last 5. They've won 8, drawn 6, lost 4, and they've been overtaken by Feather at the end of the day. And I haven't seen enough of Feather to be that impressed this season so far. Which is why I've got Shrine beating them 3-1, because I do rate that Azza and Starman Bozo combo. It just depends whether B-Shake or Ozan, whoever plays, can keep up with that pace, because they are the top of the tier players. So we got head onto the next screen. And like I said, if you look further on Pegasus, I go 1 better, and I have Eclipse running to the final. I rate this player so highly, and I'll get onto that. But we'll start off with Eclipse versus Apprentices. 3-2. I'm going game 5, but I do think Eclipse can put this game to bed a lot earlier. Let me just give you a bit of information. Since losing to Yamato 4-0 in week 6, they signed GC Exile. They've beat Shrine 4-0, Komodos 4-0, Pardus 4-0, Masai 3-1, Crusaders 3-1. Sorry, Pardus 3-1, Masai 4-0, and Crusaders 3-1. That's a total of 20-4. That is title-winning form. And they also drew Kipatli 2-2, who are also one of the favourites for this tier. So if you go in 20-4 against some of those teams, especially Shrine, Komodos, and Chipatli, that's 10-2 right there. So it's title winning form. If on the lower bracket we've got Neptunian 2, Feather 3. I do think Feather can take this, but I think that's as far as they're going to go. I've got Eclipse beating Shrine 3-2 in the next round after Shrine lose to Yamato in a game 5. I think that could go either way, but I'm back in the Serene boys. I've been impressed with them all season. I did predict them 6th in league play, and as Meaty Pig will cry, Friday had them 9th. No one believed in them, and they have been first most of the season, sweeping a lot of teams. They did have a bad last week, losing to Chipatli, but I do think they can overcome that. And I've got Bishops beating Chipatli 3-2. looking back at this, I'd probably change this result because I've looked into Bishop's form more. They won 1 of the last 5. Their form has heavily dropped off. I've heard there's issues with the team and not playing as well as they'd like to together. I thought Borsveld would take them 1 step higher, but it seems like that Sandust loss has just got to their heads and they're not performing as well. I do believe that with a bit of help that they can turn the corner. But in that lower bracket, I've got Chipotle easily brushing aside Feather 3-1 and Eclipse beating Shrine 3-2. In the upper final, I've got Yamato beating Bishops 3-1. Again, I'd probably put Chipotle here at this point. I do think Yamato would see off Bishops quite easily in the current state that Bishops are in. So going down, I've got Eclipse beating Chipotle 3-2. I do think all these games are going to be close. Again, it's like Prospect. Any of these could be a coin flip and best of 5, but I really rate GCX highly. I've been playing with him recently as well, and he's so goated for the tier. I don't think he's worked on previous rosters, but he just slips into that team with Bites and Panic, who's really solid for his CMD. Going into the lower final, I've got Eclipse beating Bishops 3-2. Again, I think Eclipse can dispatch some of these teams a little bit comfortably, going back to Feather and Apprentices. But going forward, I've got Yamato beating Eclipse 4-2. I think that's as far as Eclipse's run goes, but I do think they can cause a lot of upsets in this playoffs. But like I said, looking back at it, I probably would swap Chipotle and Bishops in that upper bracket.
All right, so there we have all our predictions, and here as well, every one of us at least thinks that Yamato is gonna be in the top 2, and I want to say all of us thinks Bishop's gonna make it as well. No, only 3 of us thinks Bishop's gonna make it into the top 3 with, well, Kingsman, obviously you're supporting your own franchise here, so you think they're gonna make it in the top at the top spot, and then I look at my screen and I see nobody believes in this team. Well, to be honest, some people believe in this team. It's just Sir Pigs is not really believing in this team. But there we have it. We're at the end of this RSCast. We talked about all the results. We've seen all the teams that made it into the play-ins. We talked about our predictions. So any final thoughts here? Pegasus, let's start with you.
Oh, it's going to be a week of grinding. It's going to be a tiring one for me and all the challenger and prospect players. This is their final opportunity. This is what all of it has led up to, but I can see Kingsman yawning. I'll stop talking now. I won't be on streams this week. Will we see any of you two? I hope so. But I severely doubt it. Kingsman, yeah, you're not going to be playing in playoffs because your team has sniped you out. Any plans for the rest of the week, and will you be staying up to date with the RSC?
I hope so. Yeah, but Pigs, I expect to see you casting on Sunday from about 6 o'clock onwards. So, don't let me down now. I want to see you casting that grand final. Anyway, without the yeah, it doesn't believe in Pigs. Thank you, Mal. That is correct. But yeah, I've got a project this week that I've got to be working on. So, but I will keep up to date with RSC. I'll be in the streams supporting the teams. I'm gonna keep you up. And remember, the predictions we do are just for fun. We don't take it seriously. Don't take it to heart. Like, we do it for a bit of fun. We do it for ourselves, and we do it to give a bit of anticipation for the players. It makes things a little bit better. Takes it honestly. Get Mal in as the permanent streamer. I'm loving this. But yeah, no, we do it for a bit of fun. Don't take it to heart. And I'm gonna wish every team that's in playoffs this week the best of luck, and may the best team win.
Yeah, and before I'm gonna close off, obviously we have the head admin here. So, Ark, do you have any final thoughts now that we are at the end of league play and we're going into those play-ins playoffs?
I just want to thank everyone for playing league play. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Obviously, we love running the league for everyone to play. If we didn't do it, there wouldn't be much out there anymore for people. State of the esports scene and people dying and not not being able to run tournaments anymore. So I hope everyone stays with RSC and obviously ARS in the once the Christmas break is over. Tune into playoffs. We really do need the viewership. That's what helps us get sponsorships in the future. It's all about social media metrics and channel views, etc. So if you want to support the league, you need to be watching the streams at the end of the day. It's all good saying like we don't put streams on for people, but if you don't watch them, then why would we? Do you know what I mean? We could easily go from 3 league play streams to 2 if we wanted to. We need you there. Thank you to Mal for stepping in for the broadcasting tonight as well. So I didn't have to do it. I've not slept since Saturday. So that's good for me. Yeah, just tune in, watch playoffs, enjoy it, and yeah, see you next season, hopefully.
All right, the wise words from our head admin. But obviously, everything wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. Team Hosky, Team Serene, Gamers Apparel, and Badass making everything possible. Make sure to follow us on all the social at RSC_EU to stay up to date. And like said so many times already here on RSCast, this week it is Prospect and Challenger play-ins and playoffs. The highlight of the 2 bottom tiers are in RS13. So make sure to tune in. We're signing off here at RSCast. We'll see you this week within one of the streams. But for now, enjoy the rest of your night.